Everyone knows Walmart by day. Fluorescent lights, blue vests, rollback prices. A temple of commerce where everything has its place. But after midnight, when the last customers leave and the night crew arrives, that's when these big box stores reveal their true nature. Between 3 a.m. and dawn, something shifts. Aisles rearrange themselves. Time stretches like melted plastic. The barriers between worlds grow thin. Those cheerful, "How may I help you" signs take on a more sinister meaning when you realize what kind of help is being offered. Perhaps you felt it, that prickle at the back of your neck while passing through an empty section. The way mannequins track you with painted eyes. The uncanny feeling that the store is somehow larger inside than out. The employees whose name tags change when you look away. You're not imagining things. In this video, you'll find testimonials from those who've experienced the other side of America's favorite superstore. People who discovered that some prices can't be measured in dollars, and that everyday low prices sometimes means paying with something far more valuable than money. So push your cart forward. But remember, not all merchandise can be returned. And if you hear an announcement calling your name over the intercom, run. Management is not responsible for lost souls, temporal anomalies, or unexpected existential awakenings. I never thought I'd be the guy with a crazy story nobody believed. I used to laugh at those people, you know. But here I am. I've been working the night shift at Walmart for over 3 years. It's not glamorous, but it paid the bills. The overnight differential was decent enough. I liked the quiet. Walmart at 3 a.m. has this weird peacefulness to it. Well, it used to. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when things started changing. Little stuff at first. The kind of things that make you question if you're just tired, or if the weird hours are finally getting to you. I'd stock shelves meticulously, come back an hour later and find products in completely different spots. I'd hear footsteps when nobody else was in my section. You work nights long enough, your mind plays tricks on you. That's what I kept telling myself. My supervisor Tom is a decent guy, been with the company for almost 15 years. He's seen it all, or so he thought. We usually communicate through these crappy walkie-talkies that cut out half the time. 2 months ago, around 3 a.m., Tom's voice crackled through asking me to check something in aisle 17. Now I know this sounds stupid, but we don't have an aisle 17. Never have. Our store goes from 16 straight to 18, some old building quirk from when they renovated back in the 90s. So I figured Tom was just tired, or the radio was cutting out. "Tom, you mean aisle 16 or 18? We don't have a 17, remember?" The radio just crackled with static. I pulled out my employee map, we all carry them during inventory, and double-checked. Nope, just like I thought. 16, then 18, no 17. But when I looked up from the map, I swear to God, there it was. A dark aisle stretching between 16 and 18, like it had always been there. The overhead lights were dimmer there, flickering slightly. I felt this weird pressure in my ears, like when you're driving up a mountain and need to pop them. The air around this aisle felt wrong, heavy and metallic, like standing too close to those big electrical boxes outside. My first instinct was to call Tom back, but something made me walk closer instead. I flipped on my flashlight and pointed it down the aisle. The shelves were stocked with products I'd never seen before. The packaging had these weird symbols on them, not any language I recognized. Just looking at them gave me an instant headache, like my brain was rejecting what my eyes were seeing. I took a step back and radioed Tom again. "Tom, when did we get an aisle 17, and what the hell are we stocking there?" Nothing but static. During my break, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I snuck into Rita's office, she's our night manager, while she was doing a walkthrough in the garden center. That ancient computer they refused to replace took forever to boot up. But I wanted to look at the store plans. The files went back to 1987 when they built this place. Turns out there was some controversy with the local tribe about building here. Something about disturbing sacred ground. The usual stuff you hear, right? But then I found incident reports. employee records, missing persons cases. The first one was from 1988. A night stalker named Al had reported finding an extra aisle during his shift. He disappeared 3 days later. The security footage they recovered showed static whenever they tried to view that section of the store, but his employee file had a photo that made my blood run cold. The guy looked exactly like me. Not just similar, it was my face, wearing an old 80s Walmart uniform. My hands were shaking as I kept digging. Every few years, another night shift worker would disappear. The cameras never showed them vanishing, just static. But their employee records were all there, and every single photo showed my face at different ages. Different hairstyles, different name tags, but undeniably me. I started noticing changes in myself after that night. My reflection in the store windows gets a little dimmer each shift. Sometimes my hands pass right through items I'm trying to stock like I'm made of smoke. One night, a customer walked right through me like I wasn't even there. She didn't react, didn't even shiver as people do in ghost stories. I just wasn't solid to her. It hit me then that those weren't past victims in those files. They were my future. Me, trapped in this endless loop of stocking shelves and feeding whatever resides under this store. This isn't about ghosts. It's about time being broken here, folded back on itself like origami. That extra aisle, it's like a membrane between our world and something else. Something old. It feeds on people, using us like batteries. We all work here now, stocking shelves with products that don't exist, labeled with symbols that bypass your brain and speak to something primitive inside you. After a while, you start to understand those symbols. They tell stories about beings that existed before humans evolved, things that got disturbed when we started building here, things that don't experience time like we do. Last week, I tried to quit, walked into Rita's office and handed in my notice. She looked at me with these completely black eyes and said, "You've always worked here, Michael. You always will." When I looked down at my name tag, it said Al, the guy from 1988. I tried leaving the store at the end of my shift, but the doors just led me to the back room again. Every exit takes me to another part of the store. I haven't seen daylight in what feels like weeks now. The other night shift workers, I'm not sure they're real anymore. Tom's voice on the radio sounds different every time. Sometimes it's a woman's voice, sometimes it's multiple voices speaking in unison. Rita's office is empty whenever I try to find her now. The computer files show hundreds of missing employees going back centuries, long before Walmart even existed. I watch the late-night customers now, seeing how some of them drift toward aisle 17, like they're being pulled by an invisible current. The aisle stretches to welcome them, using their energy to feed whatever's beneath us. My name tag keeps changing. Al, Mike, Matt, but they're all me, trapped in this eternal shift. The only way I can explain it is that this store is a trap, not just the building, but the space it occupies. That Native American tribe wasn't just being superstitious. They knew something was wrong with this land. Whatever resides here needs energy and consciousness to sustain itself. The perfect setup is a 24-hour store with tired, isolated night workers who won't be missed right away. I've tried leaving notes for myself, warnings for the next iteration of me that will discover all this, but they always disappear. I suspect I've written this exact note hundreds of times before, trying to break the cycle. The other night, I decided to walk directly into aisle 17, as deep as it would go. The products on the shelves started changing as I walked, morphing into things I couldn't comprehend. The aisle kept stretching impossibly long. After what felt like hours of walking, I saw a figure at the end, stocking shelves with mechanical precision. It was me, or a version of me, older, gaunt, with eyes that had seen too much. He turned and smiled when he saw me approaching. "Took you long enough," he said. "I've been waiting to train my replacement." That's when I realized what was happening. I'm not just trapped in a loop. I'm being groomed to become something else. Something that manages this place. Something that helps it feed. It's 3 a.m. again now. It's always 3 a.m. here. My radio's crackling with static, and I know another version of me is about to discover what's really going on in this store. Some doors only open one way, and some hunger can never be satisfied. The store keeps expanding, reality bending around our endless shift. We serve powers beyond comprehension, feeding an ancient hunger one shelf at a time. And the worst part? I'm starting to forget what the outside world looks like, starting to think maybe I've always been here. So if you're ever in a Walmart late at night and see an aisle that shouldn't be there, or an employee who looks right through you, just keep walking. Don't make eye contact. Don't check your receipt. Just leave while you still can. Because at Walmart, the customer is always right until you're no longer the customer, then you're just inventory. I've been debating whether to share this for months now, but after seeing that news segment yesterday about another group of college kids who went missing at the Walmart on Ridge Road, I feel like I need to tell someone what happened to us. Maybe it'll stop others from making the same mistake. It all started as a stupid dare, the kind of thing you do when you're in your 20s with nothing better to do in a small town on a Friday night. My friend Katie had been working at Walmart for about 6 months, and she'd managed to swipe her manager's keycard during her shift that day. "We should totally break in after they close," she said while we were hanging out at Dave's apartment. "We can drink some beers, ride those electric carts, and just mess around. No one would know." It seemed harmless enough at the time. Stupid, sure, but the kind of story you'd laugh about years later. There were 4 of us that night. Me, Katie, Alex, and Dave. Katie wasn't scheduled to work, so she was free to join our adventure. We waited until about midnight when the cleaning crew usually finished up. I remember shivering in the October air as we crossed the empty parking lot. The place looked different at night. All those empty parking spaces, the building looming against the sky like some sleeping beast. I had this weird feeling in my gut, but I chalked it up to nerves about breaking in. Getting in was surprisingly easy. Katie's stolen keycard worked on the first try, and just like that, we were inside. The emergency lights cast everything in this eerie bluish glow. The store felt wrong somehow. Too quiet, too still, too expectant. "This place is creepy as hell," Alex whispered, cracking open a beer from the 6-pack he'd brought. His voice echoed more than it should have, like the space was bigger than it appeared. "You know how Walmart has this particular smell during the day? Like cheap plastic mixed with whatever industrial cleaner they use on the floors? At night, it was different. The air felt heavy and had this acidic taste, like when you accidentally touch a battery to your tongue." Dave had his phone out, filming everything. "This is going on YouTube, guys. Night at Walmart. It'll go viral." His excitement seemed to die down the further we walked into the store. We headed to the toy section first, which in hindsight was a terrible idea. All those dolls and action figures, their little plastic eyes seemed to follow us as we passed. "Let's ride the bikes next," Katie suggested, attempting to keep the mood light. But there was tension in her voice that hadn't been there before. That's when I first noticed something off about the mannequins in the clothing department. I'm not a superstitious person, but I swear one of them had changed positions since we'd walked past it earlier. Katie noticed it too. "Guys," she said quietly, "I dressed these mannequins on Tuesday. That one was definitely facing the other way." We tried to laugh it off. Alex made some joke about mannequins coming to life like in that old movie, but nobody found it funny. The beers weren't helping us relax anymore. Then the lights started behaving strangely, not just flickering, that would have been normal. They were pulsing in a rhythm that felt intentional, like a heartbeat. And underneath it all was this low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Dave was the first one to freak out. He was filming the mannequins when his phone went haywire, the screen glitching out with strange symbols instead of normal text. Then he just stopped moving altogether, standing completely still with his arm raised like he was recording a video. "Dave?" I called, walking over to him. "Quit messing around, man." When I touched his shoulder, his skin felt wrong, smooth and cool to the touch, like plastic. I yanked my hand back, and that's when we all heard it. The sound of squeaking shopping cart wheels coming from every direction at once. The store began to change around us. The aisles seemed longer than they should be, stretching out into darkness. Price tags were moving. I know how that sounds, but they were shifting across the shelves like insects. Alex bolted for the emergency exit, But when he got there, it was just another aisle that I swear hadn't been there before. Katie started crying, but her voice sounded distorted and mechanical, like those automated checkout machines saying unexpected item in bagging area. When I looked at her, she was moving all wrong. Her joints were bending in places they shouldn't, her head rotating too far when she turned to look at me. Her eyes seemed flatter somehow, as if painted on. I ran. I don't remember making the conscious decision to leave them behind, but suddenly I was sprinting through housewares, then electronics. That's where I found Dave again. He was standing in the display section, perfectly posed next to the newest iPhone. His skin was completely plastic now, and a red price tag stuck to his wrist that read, "Rollback Special, $59.99. His eyes were still moving, though, following me as I backed away. The next part is hard to piece together. I remember running, the sound of plastic scraping against plastic following me. All the mannequins were moving now, not even trying to hide it anymore. Store displays were folding and unfolding themselves like origami. The exit sign kept changing. Instead of exit, it flashed words like stay, join us, and forever. I don't know how I made it out. One moment I was lost in what should have been the garden center, but had somehow become an endless maze of identical aisles, and the next, I was in the parking lot, my lungs burning, my legs shaking, completely alone. The police investigation was a joke. They said the security footage was corrupted, just static and strange symbols. They found no sign of my friends. The store manager claimed there had been no break-in at all, and that the alarm system would have triggered if anyone had entered after hours. They eventually classified it as a missing persons case, suggesting my friends had decided to leave town together. They even implied I might have had something to do with their disappearance, though they couldn't prove anything. No one believed what really happened. Why would they? It sounds insane even now as I type this. But here's the thing. I've driven past that Walmart at night since then. Sometimes, if I look carefully at the windows, I see them inside. Alex arranging items in sporting goods with unnaturally precise movements. Dave forever posed with the latest electronics. And Katie. She stands at the front, greeting invisible customers with that plastic smile that never reaches her eyes. The really disturbing part? I'm starting to change too. My skin feels different, smoother, harder in places. My joints make clicking sounds when I move in certain ways. Every night, I feel this pull to go back there, like the store is calling me to return, like I left something important behind, something that was meant to be part of me. I see those news reports about more people going missing there. Always at night, always in groups, usually bored young people looking for a thrill. The store puts up their photos on the missing persons board by the entrance, right next to where their mannequin versions appear a few days later. No one seems to notice the resemblance except me. I've tried telling others. I've posted anonymously online, called the local paper, and even contacted one of those paranormal investigation shows. No one takes it seriously. The few who do listen just think I'm working through trauma or making up stories for attention. Last week, I woke up in my car in that parking lot with no memory of driving there. I was parked right by the entrance, engine still running as if I'd just arrived, but couldn't quite make myself go inside. When I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, my eyes looked flat and glassy in the dim light. So that's my story. I don't know how much longer I have before I give in to whatever's pulling me back there. I catch myself standing perfectly still sometimes, for minutes at a time, not blinking, not breathing. My roommate says he's found me sleepwalking trying to drive to the store in the middle of the night. If you ever drive past a Walmart late at night and see the lights pulsing in a strange pattern, or notice mannequins that seem to be watching you through the windows, just keep driving. Some places have a hunger that never gets satisfied, and that store, it's always looking for new employees to join the eternal night shift. I think I hear it calling me now. It's funny how the most ordinary places can sometimes deliver the most extraordinary wake-up calls. For me, it happened at Walmart, of all places, on a random Tuesday night last month. I'd been stuck in this corporate job at Midwest Financial for 15 years. Same beige cubicle, the same mind-numbing spreadsheets tracking other people's money, same forced small talk in the break room. You know the type of job, A steady paycheck, decent benefits, and absolutely zero fulfillment. The kind where you wake up one morning, stare at yourself in the bathroom mirror, and suddenly realize you've been slowly dying inside for years. My ex-husband Mike had walked out 2 years earlier. "I can't handle your constant negativity anymore," he'd said while packing his suitcases. Maybe he was right. I'd become someone I didn't recognize. Bitter, resigned, always playing it safe. That particular night, I was pulling into the Walmart parking lot around 11:30 p.m. I needed printer paper for quarterly reports due the next morning because, of course, the office supply cabinet was empty. Just another exciting Tuesday night for Sarah Mitchell. The parking lot was nearly deserted, just a few random cars scattered across the asphalt as if someone had carelessly tossed them there. Inside, the store had that weird late-night vibe. You know what I mean? When the fluorescent lights make everything look slightly unreal, and the few people shopping all seem like they're there because something's gone wrong in their day. I headed straight for the office supplies, just wanting to grab my paper and get out. That's when I heard it over the intercom. "Sarah Mitchell, please report to customer service regarding your employment status." I stopped cold. That was my name, my actual name. For a second, I thought maybe there was another Sarah Mitchell in the store. But something in my gut told me this was different. I'd never worked at Walmart a day in my life, so what employment status were they talking about? Against my better judgment, I walked to customer service. The woman behind the counter looked normal enough. Standard blue vest, name tag reading Carol. But her eyes, they were too knowing, like she was in on some joke I didn't understand. "We've been reviewing your file," she said, pulling out what looked like a performance review. But it wasn't from my current job. It was about my life, my entire life. 15 years at Midwest Financial Services, she read. 0 risks taken, 0 passion projects pursued, 0 attempts to chase your dreams of opening that bookstore you've talked about since college. She looked up at me. "Care to explain?" I should have been freaked out, but honestly, I was too tired to be scared. What's there to explain? Bills need to be paid. Mortgages don't care about dreams. Carol, if that was really her name, just shook her head. "Let's look at some specific instances." She started flipping through pages. 2019, turned down chance to partner in an independent bookstore startup. 2021, rejected offer to teach creative writing at community college. 2023, declined severance package that could have funded your own business. Each example hit me like a slap because she was right. I'd spent my entire adult life choosing safety over possibility. The irony is that playing it safe doesn't actually make you feel safe. It just makes you feel nothing. As she spoke, I noticed other shoppers nearby. A guy in an expensive suit staring at his phone, probably checking stocks or emails at midnight instead of sleeping. A woman about my age reorganizing her shopping cart with this frantic precision. Like if she could just get everything perfectly aligned, her life would magically fall into place too. "You're all the same," Carol said, following my gaze. "Coming in here late at night, buying things you don't need, avoiding the lives you should be living." I wanted to argue, but what could I say? She was right. I'd been sleepwalking through life, and somehow this weird midnight encounter at Walmart was finally waking me up. "So what's the verdict?" I asked, surprised by how steady my voice was. Carol smiled, a real smile, not the retail kind. "That's up to you. Your file's still open. The question is, what are you going to write in it?" The store's speakers crackled. "Attention Walmart shoppers. The time is now midnight. The future is now open for revision." When I looked back, Carol was gone. Just an empty customer service counter under those harsh fluorescent lights. My phone showed 12:01 a.m. I'd love to tell you I marched into work the next day and quit dramatically, throwing papers in the air while my coworkers slow clapped. But real life isn't a movie. Instead, I started small. That weekend, I researched business licenses and took inventory of my savings. During lunch breaks, I'd browse commercial real estate listings instead of scrolling through social media. I signed up for online courses in bookstore management and small business accounting. My boss noticed the change in me before anyone else. "You seem different," he said, about a month after my Walmart experience. "More present." I just smiled and went back to work. I wasn't ready to share my plans yet. My sister thought I was having a midlife crisis when I finally told her. A bookstore? In this economy? With Amazon eating everyone's lunch? But she helped me draft a business plan anyway. That's what family does. They think you're crazy but support you regardless. 3 months after my late-night wake-up call, I handed in my resignation. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. My boss seemed more sad than surprised. "I always knew you were meant for something else," he said. The severance package wasn't huge, but combined with my savings and a small business loan from a bank that actually liked my business plan, it was enough to get started. Finding the right location took another 2 months. It's a small storefront in a neighborhood that's not quite gentrified, but heading that way. Affordable now, potentially valuable later. The previous tenant had been a vintage clothing store, so the space already had character. Exposed brick walls, wooden floors with just the right amount of creaking, and tall windows that let in natural light. I signed the lease on a Friday. That Saturday, I drove to that same Walmart and bought a cheap bottle of champagne and a single glass. I sat cross-legged on the empty floor of what would soon be second chapter books and toasted to myself, to Carol, to whatever bizarre cosmic intervention had shaken me out of my 15-year rut. The store opens next month. It's tiny and I'm terrified, and I've never been happier. I've already planned the reading nooks, selected the opening inventory, and commissioned a local artist to paint the sign. My sister is designing the website, and my niece is handling social media. Turns out that when you finally start chasing your dream, people want to help you catch it. I still shop at that Walmart sometimes, usually during normal hours. I've never seen Carol again, and the customer service desk looks completely ordinary. But sometimes when I'm there late at night, I swear I can hear the speakers crackle with static like they're about to make an announcement. The weird thing is, ever since that night, I've noticed other people having similar experiences. You'll see someone standing in an aisle with this shocked look on their face, like they've just been hit with some life-changing truth. The next time you see them, they've quit their job, gone back to school, or finally asked out that person they've been pining over for years. Maybe it's a mass delusion. Maybe there's something in the fluorescent lights. Or maybe Walmart really is some kind of cosmic intervention for people who've lost their way. All I know is, I'm done playing it safe. Life's too short to hide behind spreadsheets and security. Sometimes you need a weird encounter at a 24-hour superstore to remind you of that.